So today we're going to talk about knowledge sharing in groups. And as I told you before, I don't like to necessarily just talk abstractly about things. I actually have an activity that's designed to mimic some of the issues that arise when groups come together to share knowledge. So without giving too much away, the context of the activity is a murder mystery. And what I'm going to hand out is a case file that's actually quite detailed. There are a number of suspects that you have to read about. There are actual clues that point to one correct suspect as being the person who committed the murder. And your job is to exchange information as a team to arrive at the correct suspect. So there actually is one correct solution. So this is going to happen in two parts. The first part, I'm going to give you 20 minutes to read the case alone, and I'm going to give you note paper so that you can make notes. Whatever information you need from the case, you have to write down, because when the 20 minutes are up, I'm going to collect the case, and I'm going to let you use your notes and let you discuss the case for 20 minutes. And then at the end of that period, I'm going to call time, and then we're going to talk about who you think the correct suspect is, and then I'll reveal what clues you should have picked up on that would have led you to that correct solution. So are there any questions before we get started? So what I'm going to do to make this go faster, I've just made a packet per team. So when I call, I'm hoping you know your team number. So team one, oh, you're right here. All right. So each person gets one. Team two.
The wife's comment about someone's daughter. They had a fear so that also adds.
I didn't read that. But I'm thinking that's another reason, because they knew that people came the day before asking for money. It was they interviewed the guy that works in the store.
Your attention. We're not at the end of our time, but we're nearing it. So I'm curious, does any group think that their guilty party is the wife? No. Okay, good, because it's not the wife, so I was going to give you that hint. So and you have about 5 more minutes, and then I'll call time. I'm always shocked by it. People go for the wife, like it's some conspiracy theory between, it's like, no, it's not a conspiracy. There's definitely one. All right, have groups reached a consensus on who they think the suspect is? Or are you still sort of arguing back? You're still arguing back and forth? Unfortunately, since I have an hour for my part, so I want to keep us on time and not keep you too late. But of course, based on last session, you can guess that there was some kind of trick involved. And so the trick here was that each of you had different information, and that the only way to solve the problem is if you shared all of the critical clues. And so how many groups figured out that you had different information? So about half of you, there was a suspect, right? All right, so so I want to get to what the correct answer is, but I just want to give you a little history of where this task came from. And we'll talk about what you thought and why in just a second. But this task was actually intended to mimic why people form groups typically in the first place, which is that you're supposed to take people who each know something unique, people from different fields, different departments, different educational backgrounds, and combine them so that they then exchange unique information to reach an idea or solution that's better than any one individual could have come up with alone. Now, I started Sunday night showing you that that's kind of the idea behind brainstorming. Doesn't work very well. And one of the reasons is that we stifle dissent. But this was intended to sort of show whether or not that basic idea works. And what they've discovered is something called the common knowledge effect. And when you put people in teams, what often happens is rather than focus on and consider unique information, the group tends to favor and focus on and talk about information they have in common. And there are a lot of reasons for that, one of which is that it's just easier to talk about things you have in common. So you immediately focus on that. It's like, okay, yeah, I had that too, and we all had it, and so that's clearly important. And the reason that unique information tends not to get shared is that when somebody shares it, it kind of goes into a void. It's like, well, I didn't have that. Maybe you got it wrong, right? Maybe your notes weren't complete. And then the person who has the unique information thinks, well, maybe I did write something down incorrectly. Maybe I don't trust what I know. Maybe it isn't valuable to the conversation. And so those kinds of dynamics can undermine the quality of group decision making. And this basic effect has been shown over and over again. Many different kinds of teams do it. So this common knowledge effect is really robust. But unfortunately, the researcher who came up with this activity actually wanted to show the opposite. He wanted to show that when groups have unique information, they readily use it, and therefore they're better than individuals. And what this has been shown over and over again in all the research that's been done is 70% of the groups that do this on average get it wrong because they fall prey to this common knowledge effect. And so the activity basically is just to orient you to the value of unique information, and that when you're in an interdisciplinary team, people are going to share things from their own background, own experiences, and it's easy to sort of dismiss that because it's not the way you typically do things or it's not familiar to you. But it's really important that teams share that information. So that's just sort of a general overview. I want to give you a handout. I would normally have slides to go through this with you, but I made a handout instead so you can actually read what the critical clues were. So let me just hand this out and then we'll talk about, here you go. All right, so as you'll see if you flip to the handout, Eddie is the correct suspect because he had the motive, he had the opportunity, he attempted to frame somebody, and the remaining suspect, the wife, there was absolutely no information to suggest the wife did it, except if you watch a lot of crime channels, it's always the spouse that did it. That's typically the theory. But it really astounds me, actually, how many people go for conspiracy theories, or it was the wife and Billy, or it was the wife and... So just a show of hands, how many groups actually picked Eddie? Okay, great. So this is actually higher than the average solution rate, which is typically, as I said, 30% get it right. So you guys are very good at exchanging knowledge. Was there any... You could have missed... It could have gotten it right for the wrong reasons, maybe. So one group had an interesting... Was there a moment where you realized that you have unique information, or was that a critical... And then, so you guessed it pretty quickly, right? And then how did you manage that when you realized that, wait a minute, we might know different things? Like, was there a... Did you immediately trust, or was there a... Yeah.
Your story. She just like overtly said, hey, we like that information, but like when we said something about the hearing aid that wasn't in my packet, and he took such good notes, and I was like, even if I miss it, I'm gonna trust that he's right.
See, that's the critical thing. That's the really critical. Yeah.
I didn't know like, oh, different packets, but I was like, he's really confident and took so many notes, I'm gonna believe him.
Yeah, and so this is exactly what this points to, one of the solutions to this problem, which is it's been shown in the research, which is why I spend my life as a psychologist sort of documenting the obvious, unfortunately. But trust is actually really key to this. And what they found is that the more time you've spent together as a group, the more likely you are to utilize unique information when it's shared, more likely to notice it, more likely to comment on it, more likely to get the right solution. So familiarity is key, trust is key, and whatever way you manage to build trust is a good way of getting at that. And I think your group actually mentioned that explicitly, right? So you had some experience working together or something. What was the from yesterday? Yeah.
Our shared experience yesterday that made us trust the possibility that we had
Right.
unique information today.
And we both finished it and took notes on every line. So it was like, how could she not know what I
Yeah, so you trusted each other's competence. I actually want to hear, so, sorry, I'm trying to keep some group conversation going, but it's hard. Oh, you didn't think it was Zach Bowling, right? So was there, who thought it was Billy? Was that the other favored suspect? Was there a group? That was the other one. Yeah, I mean, there's...
Didn't get the deaf part.
The what? Which part?
The deaf part didn't come up.
Oh, okay, yeah. So it requires that people not only write it down. Okay. So you assume that people know things, right? Anyway, so, all right. So a few things. What was that?
Yeah, not everyone had that.
Yeah, not everyone had that information.
But was it in one of the packets?
It was in one, yeah. So it would have had.
Like an eyewitness that said I saw him at 7 or something?
yeah, somebody had to have had that in their packet and somebody didn't write it down, right? So you have to trust that people made notes, right? So if it didn't surface, it didn't surface. Anyway, so just a few more points. And so I talked about ways around this. Again, I think a theme here is emboldening people to speak their mind and share what they know and be confident enough so that when they're rejected by the group that you continue to assert the value of your information. And so this circles back to the last lecture we talked about the value of dissent. Groups that value alternative points of view, permit people to speak their mind, end up doing better on this situation as well, because it really requires, I think, some guts to say, like, no, I had that. I had something about a hearing aid in my, so you have to listen and consider it. And what you often see is that groups really don't want to take that into account, because what happens at the beginning of the discussion is you converge on one particular point of view quickly based on shared information, and then unique information then is generating conflict, right? It's counter to that. It's counter to what people want to believe, and so it takes time and effort to really ensure that the group takes it seriously and actually utilizes it. So that was the sort of point of the exercise, and you have the handouts. I apologize that I didn't have the PowerPoint slides up front, but again, I'm going to make all of the slides for all of my things available if you're interested in reading more. But I'm also mindful of the time and that it's late in the evening. And Julie is not here, so I assume she gave you instructions about your slide deck for the day. No, I didn't. That's you, okay. But so before, let me just say, yeah, we're there. I only had an hour. I thought that was a serious thing. So next time I'm going to talk about what happens when people have to choose which idea to pursue. So biases in the way people evaluate new ideas, and that hopefully what I've sort of given you in these 3 sessions are ideas about how to get more information on the table, utilize it more effectively. But at some point you're going to have more than one idea you could possibly pursue, and we're going to look at the decision-making process that goes into choosing which idea you're going to invest in, which idea you're going to bring to fruition. And the theme for the next hour is going to be that people really aren't very good at this. So that's sort of the theme, as I'm sort of bashing individual psychology. And that people pay attention to really stupid and irrelevant cues when they go about making decisions about which idea to pursue, one of which really favors narcissists in the process of idea evaluation. So I'm going to talk about how narcissism plays a role in idea evaluation, whether or not we think their ideas are good or not. And I'm going to hand out a measure of subclinical narcissism so that you will have a, yeah, so I always say that as a caveat, because sometimes people score high on it and they come up to me after and they're like, do I need therapy? Like, should I fix this? Like, it's like, no, this is like, this measure is totally, even if you score high, you're still within the normal range.